Remember when I said expanding the college football playoff would be a bad idea? And I don't want to hear Joe Quad and others say, well, NFL playoff games are blowouts too. Yeah, what, maybe one or two of the first wild card games are blowouts, and that really inflates the score? No, these weren't even competitive. And everybody that wanted to try to justify SMU getting into the playoff or Clemson getting into the playoff or even Indiana getting into the playoff, I thought was BS. Now, I thought Tennessee deserved to get into the playoff potentially, but again, if it was in my playoff system, I would have had 6 teams in the playoff. Tennessee would have been left out as the number 7 seed. But this whole college football playoff thing, to me now, it is about TV ratings. It's going to be on more games. They're going to want to expand the playoff to 16 games. So now no one's going to get a bye. It's just going to be a big mess. Listen, from Indiana, Notre Dame Friday night to Penn State, SMU on Saturday to Clemson, Texas to Ohio State, Tennessee, all four of these games were mismatches. And I don't care about the fact that Clemson got, in my opinion, 2 garbage time touchdowns to cut the lead to 7 in the fourth quarter, to look kind of scary. And then when you were just into the ball off, and there went Texas, and they got up 14, and that's your ball game. Um, in college football this year, and now with Georgia's quarterback situation, with Carson back, not going to be ready for the college football playoff. I believe we have 3 teams that can win the college football national championship, and I've been saying this. And all 3 of these teams are on the same side of the bracket, and 2 of them are playing in the Rose Bowl. Ohio State, Oregon. And I think the winner of that game will play Texas, who will absolutely destroy Arizona State, who was not the fourth best team in the country. Reminder, they were picked last to win a revised Big 12. Now, they're an incredible story, but they don't match up very well with Texas. Texas's offense versus Arizona's defense. I think Texas, back in their Big 12 days, they win. Again, Arizona could put up some points. I'm not saying Texas has the best defense in the world, but Arizona State will not be able to stop Texas's offense. I've been saying it since the Ohio State Oregon game ended in Eugene that Ohio State and Oregon would either A, meet in the Big Ten championship game, or even B, or potentially even both, meet in the college football playoff on a neutral field. This matchup has been coming. And I had said, you know, Ohio State fans want to bang on Ryan Day because he lost, quote unquote, to that team up north. We all know that Ohio State Michigan rivalry is different. I had said that, Ohio State, maybe they would like to go on the road and go to Tennessee where they're not going to be in front of that hostile crowd at the Horseshoe in Columbus. But I had said Ohio State better score first. And they did so. They jumped on Tennessee all day. They were more physical than Tennessee. And now I think they're going to be ready for this rematch with Dylan Gabriel and the Oregon Ducks. And I had said that when they meet on a neutral field, Ohio State was going to win the game because they arguably should have won the game in Eugene. And I do think that's the case. And I think we're going to get a semifinal matchup of Ohio State, Texas. And I think that will be your national championship game. Quite frankly, to be honest, Notre Dame, Georgia, I think it's going to be a very physical, run the ball, boring, low scoring defensive game. I don't think either of those teams are national championship contenders. They will face the winner of Penn State, Boise State, who Boise State is coming off a bye. They obviously have the terrific back. And, Penn State took advantage and they beat an SMU team that, again, I don't care if they beat Clemson or not. They did clearly not belong in the college football playoff. James Franklin's team cruised. That was the biggest blowout of the weekend. But I think out of all 4 of these matchups, Arizona State, Oregon, Georgia, Boise State, the most that matches up the best with Penn State is probably Boise State. I think Penn State will win, and then Georgia or Notre Dame, who I don't think either of those teams could potentially keep up with Drew Adler and that Penn State offense. Like I said this when Penn State got the number 6 seed for losing the Big Ten championship game. I thought they had the best bracket out of anybody in the college football playoff. And nobody thinks James Franklin is a great big game coach, but I think Penn State will cruise to the national championship where they will get obliterated by the winner of the Texas versus the winner of the Ohio State Oregon game. That's the way I see it right now. I think we'll have a couple good games. Again, I think Ohio State, Oregon, and the Texas Ohio State Oregon game, I think those will be fantastic college football games. I had made the argument for years that we should not even expand this playoff to six. Again, if they were going to expand it because they want more games, they want more revenue, the super conferences, etc., I got it. I still thought 12 teams was way too much. I said I could have heard the argument for eight, but I didn't really want to hear the argument for eight because I knew deep down, last year, I think was one of those years where we could have had 5 or 6 teams win the national championship. And as we've gotten more data on teams this year, the more that teams play good teams, we don't have a great team in college football. We have 3 teams that are better than everybody else. We have a lot of teams that are one dimensional on either good on offense, they're good on defense, they're not good on the other side of the ball. So, college football, that's why I don't get into it in September, October, November. Unless we have, one big game like an Ohio State, Oregon, like a Georgia, Alabama, because most of these games don't live up to the hype. And again, NIL, transfer portal, now Belichick coming into North Carolina. The sport is a wild goose chase. And we do have teams like Vanderbilt, who's got some players now who can give teams more of a fight. But at the end of the day, there is still a discrepancy in the hierarchy in college football. So I thought the expansion was a bad idea. The argument that there's blowouts in the NFL just doesn't make any sense because it's 2 different sports. The NFL is a quarterback driven league, college football is a roster driven league, and there was never a need to expand this football playoff. Everybody wanted to argue who the 4 versus 5 was. If they expanded it to 12, you're going to argue 12 versus 13. If they expanded to 16, you're going to argue 16, 17. They expanded to 8, you're going to argue 8 versus 9, etc. So there's always going to be an argument. At the end of the day, there's always 3 or 4 teams that can win the college football playoff. Clemson was never one of those teams this year. They had 3 regular season losses, and just because they won the ACC championship game, they're in the CFP. College football is not the NFL where, most of these games come down to a field goal and they're very low spreads. Most of these games, again, all the spreads, even Ohio State, Tennessee was 7.5, so more than a touchdown favorite. That's the difference. You look at these NFL playoff lines, all of them, besides maybe one, will be, 2.5, 3.5. 1 or 2 of them, maybe a 7 versus 2, maybe a touchdown favorite, but no more than like 6.5 or 7. To me, that's the difference between the expansion of college football and the NFL. The margins are a lot different in college football. I think the comparison between the two is just non existent. I was not in favor of expansion. To me, this past weekend showed it. They got a big number. Don't get me wrong. Ohio State, Tennessee got a near NFL regular season number. It got a near World Series number. It beat out the NBA Finals easily. And we know how bad the NBA ratings are in today's world. But from a ratings perspective on ESPN, they were a success. I get it. Again, that's what it's all about. But at the end of the day, the games were not competitive. They're going to continue to not be competitive. And as I predicted, I thought Ohio State, Tennessee, if Tennessee scored early, could be a little bit close. Once Ohio State got up 7-0, and then Tennessee turned the ball over, and Ohio State walked right in again, you knew it was over 5 minutes in. So I'm looking forward to a couple games on this bracket, but this weekend just proved me right about the new structure of college football. Like that clip from the Brand's World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brand's World podcast right here on YouTube.